Welcome to another episode of SheSpeaks, a podcast where we shine a spotlight on the incredible women shaping the world of tech and innovation. Each episode, we explore their journeys, the challenges they've overcome, and the groundbreaking work that they're doing to transform their respective industries. And in today's episode, we're diving into the world of medtech, and I'm so excited to have our guest, Dr. Paulina, who is the co-founder of Dama Health, and I can't wait to share her inspiring story with you, Paulina. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you so much for having me and doing this. I think it's really great to share these stories.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And, you're the co-founder of Dama Health. It's a groundbreaking company focused on transforming women's health through technology and research that enables personalized prescribing in female health. You are also a physician turned entrepreneur and worked at Imperial College Healthcare as a doctor, as well as having experience across various other health tech startups in the UK. So, in this episode, I'd love to explore your career journey, your work at Dama Health, and the unique challenges and opportunities facing the industry today. So, I'm excited to learn more and share your story with our listeners. So, perhaps we can start with kind of on a brief journey, take us on a brief journey on your career and bio today.
Yeah, of course. I think still very, very early in my career. And I'm just going to caveat that with I did not set up to be, I'm going to be a startup founder. And I think a lot of people do that, being like, I want to be an entrepreneur and like, this is what I'm going to do. For me, I went to med school wanting to be a global health doctor and I wanted to do MSF and always was thinking about obs and gynae and women's health. That's something I was really passionate about that aspect of healthcare because it's where you bring the new life to the world and it's a bit more of that positive side of healthcare. But then actually, the more I was digging into global health, I realized that actually technology, medical devices, and new innovation is going to have such an impact in medicine. So I just got super excited about this all. And I was like, I need to learn more about this. I need to research this more. So then I followed that a bit more instead of the global health, WHO initiative. I just delved into research in AI, digital health, and then started working with startups. So the start and working with startups, like, it wasn't the easiest journey. It was a lot of emails and a lot of no's. And then finally, I got this incredible opportunity with Sarah Care. Now Sarah is like doing so well and amazingly, probably one of the biggest health tech startups in the UK. At the time, we were still building the app, building the first algorithms. I was working with the product and data team, training the data. It's an incredible opportunity for me. And I really just got even more excited about technology and data and medicine. And then I went to business school for a year. So like a break from medicine, with my co-founder and met our medical director, and the rest is history.
So, in terms of kind of the more advancements in health tech and med tech in the last 5 years, what were your thoughts on that? And I guess around like what made you want to kind of delve into that more?
No, absolutely. So I think in the last few years we've seen incredible trends in digital health generally in terms of adoption of digitalization, innovation, and actually using data and technology in healthcare, like just to start with. Since COVID especially, I think there was a huge adoption and there was way more funding that went into the industry. However, what I'm really excited about now is like really we're seeing the world is changing with AI and the use cases for data and also like the sort of health optimization. So I think I'm super excited because we will see incredible change, I think, in the next 2 years where it actually all converges into one. So I think firstly, we're going to see the move away from just digitalization automation in healthcare. So beyond, health apps and introducing electronic health records, we're actually looking into how can we leverage all the data that we have? How can we use predictive models? And I think LLMs, it will be incredibly to see like what's actually going to happen. I think there's interesting challenges to see in terms of what we do with hallucination, the error rates that we can accept with the LLMs, but incredible opportunities. I think healthcare is really going to change if we embrace this technology. So really excited to see what that happens in that space. I think it's also interesting to see at the same time as we have insane boom in AI and innovation, we're seeing this population trend and behavior change around health. So, Brian Johnson, Tribe, and longevity and health optimization. And all of that means people are taking more responsibility for their health, like they're more interested. Everyone is tracking their data.
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting because now we have the tools, like the technological tools, with like the awareness and insight and interest from everyone to be involved in their healthcare. So I'm really looking forward to see this kind of how this merges and we can really optimize our health and longevity and move away from this kind of sick reactive healthcare towards a bit more P4 medicine. So P4 means personalized, preventative, predictive, and participatory, which means really like taking ownership of your health and preventing, optimizing your health like before like issues appear. So yeah, I'm also a very excited person and like very enthusiastic. So I think really positively about the future of like, okay, if these trends and these technologies are coming, like what can we do to actually optimize health and healthcare?
Yeah, I think AI is definitely becoming kind of a topic of conversation. It is the way forward, and it's going to be, that there are pros and cons to it. But I think that from the conversations I'm having with a lot of people, it seems to be more kind of pros to it, and definitely people taking ownership of their health. I'm on that tribe as well, not so much the Brian Johnson tribe, although I find him fascinating. I think, he's doing something that no one's ever attempted, and that's really interesting. Hopefully we can apply that to women's health as well, which we'll talk about a bit more.
You see all these trends, and then I often think about, okay, but what about women's health? Like even when you see the apps, like is there like menstrual health tracking app, within the longevity app? Like it's very interesting to always like, okay, well, let's do the same thing, but in women's health.
But I think, talking about those apps, like that was a game changer for me, for example, using something to kind of like track my cycles because it helped me learn more about myself and my, reproductive health, I guess, than I would have ever known. So I do owe a lot to that and have a lot of people to thank for that as well. Kind of in terms of what you're doing, the work that you're doing at Dama Health, can you tell us a little bit more about that and the research that you're undertaking?
Yeah, of course. So Dama Health on this big, ambitious vision of personalizing prescribing in female health. And we are utilizing real world data on patients' experiences with different medications and biomarker data to really get to like a level of precision personalization to recommend treatments in a more personalized way. And this is not completely out there in terms of approach to medicine, because we use this for in places like oncology and cardiovascular, where you would look into the gender, the specific tumor type that the patient might have, and actually personalize therapy based on that. But in women's health, it's been trial and error, and it still is trial and error. So we're trying to bring that precision, data-driven approach to women's health. And the problem that we've encountered, we can chat about this more, is just the lack of data and research. So if you were to go and try to do something like this for like oncology, as I mentioned, you would have huge data sets, in pharma or EMRs and basically health systems, and you would train your models based on existing data sets. The problem with that was that no one really had the data on like patients' responses. And there's many reasons for that, right? Like, firstly, women sometimes just never come back to their doctor. They just give up. They don't tell them about their side effects. We were gaslighted and they're like, oh, side effects don't exist for a while. So many reasons why the data doesn't exist. So basically we had to have like a data generation strategy as well as a company. So that's why we have two things, two streams to the business. So there is the R&D research academic side, where we are actually conducting novel research from scratch. So looking into how genetics, phenotypic, other biomarkers affect your response to hormone therapies. And we started with contraception, but now we're looking into other hormone therapies as well. And we have this software platform that is actually being used by patients and doctors currently in the US. And it's already tracking patients' responses to these medications, already making recommendations of which ones fit your lifestyle goals and medical history best. So we already started doing that based on current evidence and what we can do. And over time, as there's more data, there's more research, we'll be making those algorithms even more and more personalized.
I think when we had our kind of first conversation, I remember, sharing kind of my own story about how using contraceptive pills, for example, had an effect on my health. And it definitely did affect me badly, that we spoke of. And something like this would have been so beneficial. To actually have someone track this for me in terms of the right dosage and what would be the best medication for me, because it put me off the idea. I was put on it because of a health condition, endometriosis, another area which lacks a lot of research. And yeah, this would have been beneficial for me, and I know for many other women I know who are like me as well. So this is just absolutely groundbreaking stuff, and it's really good to hear about, this being used in the US as well, and hopefully you can transfer that to the rest of the world. So I wish you all the best with that, and I'll be cheering you on in the background, Paulina. Would you share like a little bit more about what it involves, and for you, why it's become such a critical focus?
Absolutely. So kind of like going all the way back to why I started working this was that when I was doing my placements in primary care in the UK, I was actually in a very busy GP in like central London. So many of these visits were contraception visits because, you know, it's just central London, so many young women, a lot of students as well. And they were like super rushed. And you can really tell that these visits were difficult for both the patient and the doctor. Like, you can't possibly explain all the different methods out there to the patient in 5 minutes. You can't make this personalized straight decision with someone. And then I had these conversations with the GPs and they were like, look, I just give them this pill because I just don't know, like, if someone is going to respond well or not. And they prefer if the woman already knows, like, what the type of contraceptive they would want. But like, as a person, like, why you would make that decision? Usually you would go to the doctor and, you know, they tell you like, okay, for your diabetes, this is probably the best medication. Let's start with that. Like, versus in women's health, there's, you know, a lot of like agency that you have to make that decision for yourself. And it's quite a big responsibility to put on someone. So I was like, there's definitely an issue here. And I was looking into maybe doing like a chatbot, like in the day when we didn't have LLMs just yet, to like help patients converse with a bot to like decide, okay, maybe this one is best for me, like just learn about different options, because there's like 13 different types. And within the pill, there's like 200 different brands. Like, there's so many options. And, you know, we don't really know about them and how they really can affect us. But then I met my co-founder, and she was actually looking into the genetics and the biology of this, seeing like, you know, why women react so differently. Like, some people hate it, some people love it. And you can't really ask your friends, because your friend may love this pill and you will absolutely hate it. So it's just complete trial and error. And we were just like, there must be some science that we can figure it out. But there wasn't much apart from the research from Aaron Lazarus, who is now our medical director. So he was looking into pharmacogenetics. The pharmacogenetics is the science around you react to medications, and if a specific medication is if you're going to metabolize it well or not, and if you might want to try a different one, whether you're going to be maybe at risk of adverse reactions from this medication. So it's really trying to look into the metabolism of a specific medication and your genetic predispositions for that. And we were just mind blown. Of course, like, there must be genetic differences, right? Of course, there will be differences between different women and different genders and different ethnicities and everything that, you know, is a complex ecosystem that decides how to actually respond to medication. So it's this huge trial and error that I think is quite common across medicine, but in women's health, it's just so big. And in contraception, it was just so obvious to us. And the more we started digging into it, we realized, you know, across hormonal therapies, whether it's endometriosis treatments, PCOS treatments, HRT, same trial and error, right? We just don't know why women respond so differently to these hormones. So that's how it all started. We just got really passionate about this, of like, we need to find some predictors of response. We need to understand this better, why people react so differently to it. And the statistics are also a bit crazy. And on average, women tried like 3 to 4 different types, unless they give up completely. And actually 1/3 gives up like after the first method very often and just stops using hormones. And it's completely like understandable if you're feeling horrible. And some people just like, you know, they won't ever tolerate hormonal methods as well. And we need to like learn that and probably triage and streamline these people to different treatments, which is a whole other conversation as well, that we're actually missing novel treatments for specific conditions in women's health. But so basically, this is the kind of problem that we face, and we were like, surely there must be a way to tackle this somehow. So we realized also that once the right medication is found for someone, then you can actually optimize their health. And if you do find the right treatment, it is actually preventative against ovarian endometrial cancer, and you can have lighter periods if that's an issue, and gives you that reproductive autonomy. That's also super important in certain places now in the world where, you know, the access to abortion is scarce. So it's just a very important topic that we got all passionate about. So that's kind of like what we're hoping to achieve at one day, of actually really being able to predict. And I think this is specifically important, as you started telling me as well, about endometriosis, PCOS, specifically important for patients that have difficult menstrual periods, difficult conditions. Before we have new treatments on the market, it's really finding the one that works for you, that minimizes the side effects, minimizes the adverse reactions, and actually helps you manage your symptoms. And just really passionate about using data and innovation in this space. So can we apply it to a place that there's a huge need and a lot of underfunding and not enough attention going in the last few years? So that's kind of like why it became a huge focus. And to be honest, it's also meeting the right people at the right time. Like, I always say that to everyone, that my co-founder and the medical director in the US, like, the main reasons why I decided to shift my whole career from clinical practice to doing this. So it's just really passionate people, all of us really aligned to wanting to solve this problem. So sometimes it's just about the people that you meet as well.
I think it was quite interesting when you mentioned like trying a medication a couple of times, or different types of medication, until you found something. I think it's been different for myself. It's been different for my friends who have also gone through this for differing reasons, not the same as mine necessarily. I think I gave up with just one because it traumatized me, and I only managed to take it for a whole month, and it affected me for like 2 3 years from then on. But then I know that my friends have experimented with various different ones until they found the one working. But throughout that process, it was very difficult for them.
Yeah.
So all the data that you're hoping to kind of put together and actually it will make a difference. And you're excited, and I'm so excited for you as well. But in terms of kind of the challenges, I guess, that you're facing, what are these and how do you overcome them?
When I talk about this with anyone in terms of, investors, doctors, women, it's always like, oh, you can predict which pill will be the best for me. And I was like, absolutely, I'd love to do that. And that's the goal and the vision of this company. However, as of today, we just never have enough research and data to be able to do this. So that's why we exist as a company. That's why we're collecting the data, doing the research. However, this is a common problem across women's health, as you mentioned, for endometriosis. We don't have enough data and research as well. It's just a common theme, right? And we know about the statistics of like women have not been included in clinical trials, and women's health had not been really investigated that heavily. That's why we don't know that much about endometriosis in the first place. So yeah, I think the data and the research is the number one challenge. However, I think it's really changing in the last few years, and the fact that we received the ARPA-H grant, which is huge, is actually an award from the US government that is aimed to like accelerate research in women's health. So thing is really changing. We just need to catch up and we need to be fast. And I think all the AI and the data opportunities now can really help us accelerate that as well. So number one challenge is, it's just the data and research, but I think we are tackling that more and more. And it's interesting also to see that the industry is more responsive and understands actually that, we've been neglecting this area. So let's do something about it, let's tackle it. So partnering with organization, health systems to collect these data sets and really accelerate the research, and definitely taking a bit of a shift to help with this challenge.
Yeah, how do you find as two female founders of this company, how do you find the kind of funding side? So you did get some kind of grant, and there are challenges around female founders receiving funding. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think generally, first-time founders to female founders, I think there's biases and challenges against us, and the statistics are horrible. I don't even like to think about them these days because I'm just like, I prefer to just pretend everything is like fine and just see. But I think it's definitely it's also the environment you're in that affects your opportunities to fundraise. Like there's some bubbles. Obviously, if you were in San Francisco, why you see combinator type of like founder, the things are very different. So I think you kind of just have to play that game, and also you need to be very honest with yourself of like, what type of business are we trying to build, and type of money and type of investors. So it's not an easy journey, and grants are also not easy because it takes so much time. The amount of grants we applied for and didn't get them, like it's just constant work to get the grants. But I think it's just something that health tech companies need to do at this stage in terms of, VCs are looking for like billion-dollar companies, right? And healthcare is quite a fragmented space as well. So if you're solving a specific challenge in healthcare, it may not be a billion-dollar business, right? And we need to be kind of real and honest about this. And if you're maybe building like infrastructure for healthcare, and then, that's probably the right type of business, but it's just being able to be honest of like, okay, are we need to do VC money, or actually are we looking for some other funding as well? And I know a lot of founders that they just do one round, they never want to raise again. And versus some healthcare companies, like, care delivery companies, it's so expensive to do that, like tech-enabled care, that you have to just keep going with the fundraise. So it's just very different strategies. And I think you need to be just honest with yourself and your business, and like decide like what type of funding strategy is the best for you. So,
yeah, it sounds like it's you've definitely got kind of like a plan, and those who want to kind of go into that field will have to be a bit more kind of specific about what they're looking for. You're a leader. So what do you think as a leader, what qualities do you think makes a great leader?
Yeah, it's such a like I have to be right. I have to be. It's one of these things where it's like I didn't know that to be, and like you just have to learn on the go. The classic expression of like for startup founders that you're like building the plane as you're flying, and it's constant like, and you have to have a very accepting team of like, we're all learning. This is that. I think from my experience so far, I've seen some incredible leaders across the organizations I work with part-time, and also just my mentors and advisors, because we work a lot with like successful founders, our angel investors, like people that really inspire us. And it's I've seen leaders who basically lead by example, and that's really, I find it very, very inspiring. And creating the safe environment for innovation and dialogue, because then the people that you've hired can really thrive and really contribute to the business and the team. And I think that building team is extremely important as well, like being able to build incredibly talented, hardworking team that just works together very well. And I think it's, that's when you have most value and you can kind of lead the organization very effectively. And it takes a lot of like self-development work in terms of, letting go of, I have to control everything because it's impossible, letting go of your ego as well, right? Like it doesn't have to be always the way I want it to be. And I'm hiring these people for a specific reason, to teach me and to bring new ideas. So it's a lot of personal growth as well.
I think that's really inspiring, Paulina. So I think, it's when you talk about safe space, I think there are people who kind of look at that viewpoint in a very cynical manner. And but I really disagree with that, because in creating that safe space, you're allowing expression, you're allowing people to actually, be more innovative and contribute as well to the process. So I think that's very important, and I really love what you're doing. So, hopefully, that kind of helps your business grow even more to the state that you want it to be in for the future.
There's so much to learn about leadership, and I think I'll learn so much still. And what's interesting is that when you see success stories and like what success means in the industry, like, you would see the biggest CEOs in the world. You look at like Elon Musk and the style they have in it.
Yeah.
You often think about, like, does this mean I need to be that type of leader? Does this mean I need to be like that? Like, and the sort of very like aggressive comes to mind as well. And some extremely successful companies often makes you think like, oh, like, do we need to be like that? But I think I've also met incredibly kind and inspiring leaders that maybe are not, in the newspapers and like, but they're still creating incredible organizations and a lot of wealth and value for the shareholders of the organization and the companies. And I think maybe it's not, so popular and out there, and it's just different styles. But I think what works best is if it's the style that you're leading is actually aligned with who you are, and you can do it in a more like natural way. And people will I think people will like realize that, right? If you're yourself or not.
I found from my experience that a lot of people confuse making difficult decisions with just being aggressive.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case. You can be a good person, you can be a kind person and make those difficult decisions as well. And
Absolutely.
the chances are you'll definitely get a lot more respect if you do it that way than if you were not a very good person and also made difficult decisions. But hopefully, everyone's planning everything from the start. Can't predict the future, but you're planning everything, a business, in a way that can prevent many of those difficult decisions in the future, I think. And in terms of, the hiring side, so you're building your team. I know that you've also been hiring. So what traits do you look for when you're hiring an individual?
Yeah, lately, like very much just a startup mindset. And I realized just, people that are hungry, like growth mindset, ambition, problem solving, like really being open and embracing all the innovation, the tools coming to the market. I think that's what I'm really looking for, because I know they will help us grow and help bring that energy to the business. So, for example, I'm like now asking in interviews, what tools do you use? What AI tools are helping you be more effective at work and more efficient? Because I want to see that kind of like adoption and the sort of growth, and what can they bring to the business just beyond their skills that they're bringing. What, personality, what fit, what else are they going to bring to us as a team?
And how do you balance the technical expertise with the cultural fit?
Yep, great question. And to be honest, lately we've had like such high standards, and I think it also depends on like the market supply and demand and what type of role you're hiring for. But like, I've been like, I don't want to compromise on culture fit. I think it's very difficult, especially if you have a very small team, if you're compromising on that. So really trying to like have someone that has the technical skill, but the culture fit as well. However, I am definitely noticed that I'm like, I don't need X amount of years in the CV, right? Like if they have the skill, if they are the right culture fit, I'm willing to compromise on like the specific experience bit, because I believe more in the growth and how much they can learn and pick up on the job, as we all are.
We talk, you're a woman, I'm a woman. I kind of focused on, women in tech and seeing a talent pool around that. to try and advocate for that as well. So what is your stance on women who are building careers in tech, and what do you think those challenges are?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm really glad that you're doing this, because I actively try to hire women for certain positions because I know it's hard. For example, for the engineer roles, I was like, let me try to prioritize the interviews with females. But like, literally, kid you not, for 50 interviews, I had 4 female candidates. So it was just like the odds are just against me. I think I read somewhere once that like we've been fooled to believe like we can do it all, and we can do it all, but maybe not all at once. You know what I mean? So it's just being a bit more realistic about what you do and when. And yeah, would love to hear your thoughts as well on like what you're seeing, and if are women planning careers around differently, if women are having less kids. Like, yeah, would love to get your thoughts on this too.
What you said about women can do it all is a topic of conversation. You know, women do feel the pressure, and it's quite an unfair pressure. How do we navigate it? How do we work alongside leaders to ensure that there are policies in place, or there are adjustments in place that can allow a woman to thrive? And then in terms of the time frame you have, your window of opportunity to, conceive, maybe like 10 years, but at what point do you do that as well? Because
Yeah,
life doesn't always go according to plan. And it's
yeah,
sometimes very difficult to plan these things. So where you thought maybe when you're 30 you'll have a child, it may not happen. You may
yeah,
need to wait a little bit longer. So
yeah,
it's a very, very big challenge, and it's a very real challenge, I think, especially in biotech, where when it's research led, there's the idea that, you can't just leave a project and go
yeah,
away. And I think a lot of women are struggling with that.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I think it's really good that we can talk about it, and it's like an open conversation now of how did you manage that? Like, what did you think? And speaking to like mentors and females in different positions, so how to see how they went about this. Like, how did you figure it out with your partner? Like, and it's just good to have that conversation, not pretending that we, as you said, we can do it all at the same time. And I think it's just a bit more, yeah, just realistic, open conversations.
In terms of your kind of future directions for Dama Health in the next months, what does that look like?
Yeah, we have a very exciting year. So I'm spending a lot of time in the US, launching our products with different partners. A lot of the contraception feature is live. We're launching menopause soon, working on the ARPA-H project. So yeah, really excited about this one because it's specifically for endometriosis population, and seeing which patients react to hormones, which ones don't, and the ones that don't potentially should be streamlined to other treatments. So I've always been thinking that our work will be particularly impactful for patients with PCOS and endometriosis, a really difficult period. So I'm really excited that we will have some initial data this year on this specific topic and this population. So big year for us, yeah.
And the future of women's health, because you're massively contributing to that. But on a general scale, what excites you the most about women's health and the industry?
Yeah, so as we were chatting about and at the beginning of the podcast, really excited for the conversion of the data and AI innovation with the innovation health span research, longevity research, just this more personalized predictive approach to women's health, and finally starting to catch up with the rest of medicine industry. So going now from just symptoms to actually understanding the disease, going from the generic solutions and kind of just plasters to actual personalized treatment and therapies. And there's new things coming to the market in clinical trials, which is really exciting. And just moving from the just apps and just digitalization to actually more revolutionary innovation and research. And I think we're finally going to see that change very soon, and going from, firefighting to actually optimizing our health.
Paulina, so what advice would you give to other women based on your career and experiences?
So obviously, again, I'm just also very early in my career and loads to learn, and probably loads of new lessons to come, and things may change. But some things that I thought were really helpful that my mentors told me, and it would be good if I knew them earlier on, was firstly, just making decisions based on minimizing regret. And you never really, as we talked about, like you can't really plan fully for like 5, 10, 15 because the world is changing so much. So it's good to kind of lean into something that feels right and is, you're curious and passionate about. And this is how I decided in the end to leave clinical training, because I would always regret not trying. And I would always regret not trying to pursue Dama and working on this. So in the end, I'm really happy that I did, and it was the right decision. So yeah, I think minimizing regret is a good one. And then that we spoke about, like that kind of long-term thinking and planning your life a bit more in phases. it's really hard to know exactly where you will be and you can plan exactly the sort of steps in your career. But I think it is important to be a bit like realistic about what you want to do in this phase of life versus the next phase of life as well. So yeah, kind of strategizing long term by being open to opportunities. And it's just really important to stay open for opportunities because you never know like who you might meet and what may happen like a year time with the innovation and the AI changing the like workspace and opportunities as well. So if we were to make our plans based on our options today, we are only limited to the available options versus if we keep it a bit more flexible and open, there's so many amazing things that may happen. And finally, the amazing thing is that like no one has everything figured out. Like you would look at people who are, so many other positions above you and you think, oh my gosh, like they have everything figured out. And like then you talk to them and actually they are thinking about like how can they grow more and what am I gonna do next? Like so everyone's always figuring it out, which is really really
Yeah.
nice.
And, you probably had some advice given to you along the way from people. And, as someone who can now pass on that kind of advice, what's one piece of that advice that you would share with anyone who's on a similar journey to you?
Yes, I think that really, really helped me was again when making like huge decisions on business strategy, your own personal life, what to pursue, leaving NHS. Someone told me to think about decisions in sort of framework of is this a one-way door decision or two-way door? So one-way door means there's really no coming back. You make this decision, that's it. Two-way door is actually when you can change and you can go back and things may change. So then if it's a two-way door, the faster you decide, the better. Like if it feels right, you just pursue something and then you can always course correct. You can always go back. So that's, to be honest, I could go back to NHS, right? I could go back to being a doctor. It's not impossible. So it was just, okay, well, in that case, it's very clear what I need to do.
That's pretty much how I've led my life as well. I'm going to go for this.
Yeah.
I'm going to take this risk. And if it doesn't happen, what's the worst that can happen? I can always go back to what I did before.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely served me very well. And, there've been big risks, but thankfully it's all been worth it. And, thank you so much for that insight as well. I'm sure that's going to be just so great for someone to hear. So we've come to the end of the podcast, Paulina. I just want to say thank you so much again for your time. Thank you so much for sharing everything that you have so far, Paulina. I think that you're doing is incredibly important. And on a personal level, I think it's just going to be something I'm very keen to hear more about. These things have affected me and people that I know, women that I know as well. So thank you for your time. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me and having this discussion about this topic. And yeah, definitely will keep you posted. Thank you for sharing as well your journey. I think it's important to put these stories out there and talk about it.
That wraps up today's episode of She Speaks. I want to give a huge thank you to Dr. Paulina for sharing her incredible journey and insights with us today. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others who might find it valuable. And as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, drop me a message. And thank you for listening to She Speaks, where we celebrate the women shaping tech and innovation. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep speaking up.